0. Let that sit for a second. 0 yellow cards for the side that committed 13 fouls, threw elbows into stomachs, put hands into faces, scuffed up the penalty spot mid-game, and finished the afternoon with their coach trying to pick a fight with opposition players after the final whistle. 0. And the team on the receiving end of all of it? The team getting hacked and elbowed and shoved off the ball for 90 minutes? 3 yellow cards. 3. If you didn't see this match, you're probably wondering whether you misread those numbers. You didn't. Because what happened in Philadelphia on the 4th of July was not just poor refereeing. It was refereeing turned completely, almost artistically, upside down. And by the time it was over, the man holding the whistle had not just failed his test, he had lost his job. France beat Paraguay 1-0. They are through to the quarterfinals, where they will face Morocco. But almost nobody walked out of that stadium talking about the scoreline, or Mbappe's winning penalty, or what it means for France's path to the final. They walked out talking about 90 minutes of hacking, elbowing, diving, and cynicism that turned a last 16 fixture into something closer to a street fight with a referee-shaped decoration standing in the middle of it all. And the man himself, Ilgiz Tantashev from Uzbekistan, FIFA listed official for 13 years. 13 years of professional refereeing. And on the biggest stage the sport has, in front of the entire watching world, he made history of the absolute worst kind. L'Équipe, the famous French newspaper that has spent decades savaging footballers and managers with its brutal marking system, handed him a 1 out of 10. Not a 2, not a 3, a 1. Their entire verdict took 4 words. He got almost everything wrong. 4 words. When L'Équipe runs out of things to say, you know something genuinely remarkable has occurred. Let's paint the actual picture, because the numbers alone don't capture how ugly this got. Andres Cubas went straight through Adrien Rabiot with a tackle that had nothing to do with the ball. Nothing. The kind of challenge you'd expect in a Sunday league grudge match. Juan Jose Cáceres kicked out at both Achraf Hakimi and Mbappe after losing possession. Not an attempt at a challenge, just a petty little swipe of the boot. The move of a player who knows the referee isn't watching. Matías Galarza put his hand directly into Jules Koundé's face. Later that same afternoon, the same player threw an arm at Mbappe while the Frenchman was running clean toward goal. And then there was Gabriel Avalos, who dropped an elbow directly into the stomach of Dayo Upamecano while Paraguay were chasing the game. An elbow to the ribs. On a World Cup stage, with thousands in the stadium and millions watching at home. And Tantashev's response to every single one of those moments was identical. A shrug. Play on. Think about that the next time someone tells you refereeing is difficult. It is difficult, but not that difficult. What makes the Galarza incidents particularly infuriating is the cynicism sitting inside them. When Michael Elise tugged Galarza's shirt, a shirt pull, the most routine foul in football, Galarza hit the deck like he'd been shot, arms flailing, the full performance. And it worked. The diver got the free kick. The victim got the yellow card. Tantashev bought it every single time from one direction and never once from the other. That is not incompetence alone. Incompetence goes both ways. This only went one way. The pundits watching on didn't attempt to find balance where there was none. Joe Hart, former England goalkeeper, a man who spent years at the top of the game, called Paraguay's players an absolute disgrace on the BBC and said that if they were on his team, he would have dragged them off the pitch himself. Micah Richards called it embarrassing to watch and raised the maddening point that Paraguay were genuinely a well-organized defensive side who didn't need any of this. They were good enough to compete without the dark arts. They brought them anyway. And Thomas Hitzelsberger, the former Germany midfielder, went furthest of all, said that as a neutral you could have no respect for what you were watching, and that it had gone past disgraceful into something he struggled to name. When 3 separate professionals in a studio are all reaching for stronger words to describe the same 90 minutes, you are not watching a game with a bit of edge. You are watching something genuinely rotten. And if you love this kind of deep breakdown of the stories behind the scorelines, the stuff that actually matters beyond the result, hit subscribe now, because the rest of this tournament has more of these moments coming. Now, to be fair, and this channel takes that seriously, Paraguay did not come to Philadelphia to entertain. They came with a plan, and the plan was not stupid. 5 at the back, compact shape, pack the box, frustrate France, drag it to extra time and penalties, and attempt the same miracle they'd already pulled against Germany in the previous round. And for long stretches of that first half, it nearly worked. France didn't put a shot on target until the 55th minute. It took them more than 20 minutes just to manufacture an attempt. Orlando Gil, Paraguay's goalkeeper, already a hero from the Germany game, was outstanding again. He produced a brilliant double save in stoppage time to deny Mbappe, and for long spells he made France look genuinely toothless. Defensively, Paraguay were organized, disciplined, and very hard to crack. If they had done all of that and left the elbows in the tunnel, they would have gone home with their dignity regardless of the scoreline. That is the genuine tragedy of Paraguay's tournament. They were good enough not to need the fouling. They did it anyway. But even accepting all of that, even granting that every team has the right to play their own way, none of it excuses the man in the middle. The referee's entire job is to set a line and hold it consistently for both sides. Compare Philadelphia to the Canada versus Morocco match played earlier that same day. Michael Oliver, one of England's best officials, flashed 6 yellow cards before halftime, stamped his authority on the game early, and it settled right down in the second half. That is what control looks like. Tantashev did the exact opposite. He let the temperature rise. He let the fouls stack up. He let Paraguay's players sense there were no consequences. And by the final minutes, there were scuffles, insults flying from the bench, and coach Gustavo Velasquez attempting to confront France players after the final whistle. A game gets like that because a referee allowed it to get like that. And here's the detail that should bother you most when you look at the official numbers afterward. The foul count came out at 13 for Paraguay and 11 for France, which almost sounds like a balanced, evenly contested physical match. It was not. That figure is a lie of omission, because Tantashev missed a significant proportion of Paraguay's fouls entirely. The tactical trips, the off-the-ball shoves, the small brutalities that never made it into any count, because he simply didn't call them. The real gap was far wider than 2. And even on the fouls he did register, only one team ever paid a price. The stats sheet flattered him. The eye test buried him. The moment that actually decided the match is the clearest summary of everything that day. Substitute Désiré Doué, on for less than half an hour, went on a driving run, beat one man, beat 2, and was brought down inside the box by Diego Gomez. Clear penalty. Tantashev waved it away. It took VAR to drag him to the monitor and effectively make the decision for him. And even after he'd finally pointed to the spot, Paraguay weren't finished. Velasquez sprinted onto the pitch and deliberately scuffed up the penalty spot with his boot, forcing Tantashev to physically rebuild the spot before Mbappe could even take the kick. That sequence, a penalty the referee didn't want to give, followed by deliberate sabotage of the spot, followed by a repair job under the eyes of the world, is as damning a 60 seconds as you can have in professional football. Mbappe sent Gil the wrong way. France were through. And that penalty was his 7th goal of the tournament, drawing him level with Messi in the Golden Boot race, and taking his career World Cup tally to 19 goals in 19 appearances, one behind Messi on the all-time list. 1. And he got there on a day when he was kicked, elbowed, hacked, and provoked from the first minute to the last. His line afterward was perfect. He said Paraguay had expected France to show up in tuxedos, and that France knew how to play dirty too. Deschamps refused to criticize publicly, but admitted he'd instructed his 2 biggest players to physically stand either side of Mbappe near the end, because he was afraid someone was going to take him down before the whistle. Oh, and all of this unfolded in a furnace. Kickoff temperature in Philadelphia, 101 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 Celsius, one of the hottest World Cup matches on record, not far short of the all-time mark set when Ireland faced Mexico in 1994 at 109 degrees. So while Tantashev stood there ignoring elbows, the players were simultaneously cooking alive. Nobody involved in this game had a good afternoon, except perhaps the VAR operator, who at least got to feel briefly useful. FIFA suspended Tantashev almost immediately after the final whistle. That is the closest thing to an official admission you will ever get from that organization, that yes, what you saw was exactly as bad as you thought it was. FIFA does not suspend referees for optics. When they move that fast, the footage is already damning, and they know it. 13 years of FIFA listing, and it ends like this. In Philadelphia, in 100-degree heat, with a 1 out of 10 and 4 words from L'Équipe that nobody in football will forget. So I want to hear from you. Is this the worst refereeing performance you have seen at a major tournament? Drop your call in the comments because that conversation is worth having. And if you want the full story on every quarterfinal as this World Cup builds to something extraordinary, subscribe, hit the bell, and don't miss a single breakdown. France versus Morocco is coming, and trust me, that one is going to need its own video.